you start to see a beautiful transformation take place in it actually going better. And where you start to improve one area of your life, you will naturally start to have that energy experience overflow into the other areas, which evolves you mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally, but equally intuitively. Welcome to the Rylee June Show. I'm your host, Rylee June, international intuition coach and spiritual activator. This podcast is designed for the souls who are ready to dive into what spirituality, consciousness, and healing truly is like. Here you will find the conversations and insight most spiritual teachers aren't willing to have. Why? Because we pull back the curtain on what truly takes place as you move through your healing journey, the duality of the light and the dark, and the role ethics and integrity undeniably play in your ascension experience. I have had the pleasure of working with tens of thousands of people, from clients, stories shared through messenger chats, and others in the industry to know exactly what this journey will look like for you. These episodes will share conversations of industry leaders bridging the gap to the new paradigm of reality, and individuals sharing their heart through their soul's journey they've been through and what they've learned along the way. So if you're ready to go deep, unlock truth, and activate into the blueprint of you, this is going to be a space you're not going to want to miss out every Monday. Are you ready? Let's activate. Hello, hello, hello. I am just coming into this episode so freaking blown away in so many reasons. I'm going to share them with you. But what I do when I create the podcast episodes for each week is I pre-batch what I'm going to be talking about for the month. That way I have a plan as to what I need to do or what we're going to talk about to come back to and to share it, to create an episode out of it. And when I dropped the episode last week, just about the simplicity and the clarity and the direction that I'm going and the things that are changing, and it's honestly been a non-stop download for me over the last week. And I want to share this because this week is all about how your intuition is nudging you to your next step. And I pre-wrote this episode for 3.5 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago. And when I came to this episode right now to record it, it is after literally listening into my intuition, having made some big changes in 48 hours, and what has come from that on the other side in terms of steps and direction, motivation, mindset shifts, energy shifts, awareness shifts, like all of it. And so I come on here to record, and I literally just looked at the blueprint for today, and I'm like, what? Are you serious? How did I know? Like, you know that that sound on Reels or TikTok where it's like, you're never going to know. How are they going to know? They're not going to know. That's literally what's playing in my head right now, because I'm so blown away that even if you're incredibly intuitive, these moments still happen where you go into shock because you're like, wait, what just happened? So that's where we're at today. We're in some like shocking, uplifting, next level type of energy today, and we're just gonna have the most fun we've ever had. And my hope for you this week is for you to walk away feeling so much more inspired to really tune in and to accept what is actually coming through for you, and to know that you don't have to ignore or avoid it anymore. But before we dive into this episode, I want to share a review that came in from Babes Supporting Babes, and just share with you her experience of tuning into this. And thank you so much for leaving this review. I genuinely appreciate it, and I hope and encourage all of you listening to hop on and go and drop a 5-star review and just share some of your thoughts on your takeaways from these episodes, because one, it helps me to be able to get this work out into the world, but two, it's always just such a beautiful experience to give back to something that is genuinely helping you. So if it's like, whatever it is, if you love a book, right? Sharing that book on your social media, even if you're not necessarily a social media person, and just sharing your takeaways from it. Or if you binge on a whole bunch of podcasts, leaving those reviews, they help so much. You honestly couldn't even understand unless you run a podcast yourself, then you get it. So from me, from book writers, from podcast hosts, we genuinely appreciate all the reviews that you guys drop. So from Babe Supporting Babe, she says, I love tuning into the Rylee Show, as I feel like I can always take something away from each episode. Super relatable, and I feel like I'm always learning something about myself. So thank you so much for dropping that, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. We have some announcements that we're going to talk about quickly, because there has been some big changes, and there's probably going to be maybe 1 or 2 more episodes that really just like come back to these changes and these updates, just so that you guys get to be familiarized with everything. So one of the biggest things that came through for me in this transition into this new path that I'm going, or honestly, it's not even a new path, it's just a more aligned path, is that the podcast, I was actually going to have it all done for the release this week. However, my intuition led me into a whole nother thing that we're going to be talking about today, and it didn't get done. So the podcast is going to be revamped for next week. I have the whole weekend that I'm going to be working on some stuff that I'm so excited to bring to fruition, to light. One of the biggest things that has really stood out to me is this, in the spiritual industry, there's this whole emphasis on like idolizing people, idolizing this person or idolizing that person, or, a sense of envy or jealousy that comes up from that because of the life that they had or where they are and where you might not be. And I've never liked that. Personally, I don't think anybody does. And it's not that anyone in particular is necessarily going out of their way to try and create that, because they're really just being an example for you of what else is possible. But even in a lot of the stuff that I do, I don't like the emphasis being on me. Though you're literally tuning into my podcast, listening to me, we're going to be changing it to a new name and just really continuing to make the focus about you evolving your life, becoming more intuitively connected, having a deeper sense of surrender and faith, really being able to be more honest and transparent and self-aware of just what is going on in your life that you are ultimately desiring to change or heal or grow out of or overcome or finally summit on that mountaintop. And so we're going to be doing a podcast revamp. And when it releases, which is most likely going to be for next Wednesday, there's going to be a really sick giveaway. So I'm going to encourage you guys to tune in, to share, and feel free to do that already. But we're going to have a cool giveaway. And it's just all I ask is that you just share your thoughts. And if you can leave a review, that's super helpful. And that would really support me a lot. So that is announcement number 1. We're doing a revamp on the podcast. Announcement number 2 that I did talk about, I believe last week, was how at the end of August, we're going to be closing down the membership. And that it's kind of one of those dualistic experiences, because I'm so grateful for how it served, what it has created, all the beautiful transformations that have come out of it, how far it was able to even support me and my family in this season that it was created, but that it is also coming to an end. So I'm ending it off of with celebration. So we have the membership program that is going to be closing down, but the benefit is you can come into the free Divine Expander Facebook group, which will be listed in the show notes, and I'm going to be pouring so much more value into that space as well. so that you still get your 3 times a week. We do 3 topics. We do our Transparency Mondays, so really working on building self-awareness. Wednesdays, we either have a guest based on the theme of the month. This month is all about the law of divine oneness, so just really tuning into the synchronicities of, we have 2 guests actually. One is a personal health and wellness coach, and then the other one is a beautiful woman who does she's a profound Christian. She's always believed in God. She has beautiful testimonies and miracles, and so I'm really excited to bring her in. And then on Fridays we have Faithful Fridays, so we talk about different aspects of just going deeper with our faith. And again, if God doesn't resonate with you, all I invite you to do is just keep your mind and heart open, because I know that I don't need to convince you to come to God or come to Jesus, that if you're at the very least open, that they're going to find themselves in your world. And I just get to be a walking testimony for all the ways that it has supported me in my life and continues to, because ultimately it's about your relationship. If you're going to build a relationship with the universe, why not build a relationship with the very source that created you? That is always just something that I have come back to, even for myself. That was a thing that swayed me to really create a deeper devotion to God. Was I'm spending all this time with all these other entities. I don't even know if they're genuinely positive or negative, other than the universe, because the universe is truly just information and energy. It's essentially the quantum field. But I'm overlooking God? God created me. God designed me. There's a bigger plan here. So Fridays, we do Faithful Fridays. And if anything, there's some beautiful, beautiful lessons that we can take away. One of them is going to be about today's topic, as well as just this incredible surrender that has come through in this space. So we have the membership closing. We have the podcast revamping. Intuition Immersion is going to be my sole program that I share with you guys, and it is going to be the one that is my intention with this program is honestly for you to never need another personal development or spiritual development course. And why I say that and why that's my goal is because we can get so wrapped up in constantly needing more programs, more things. And what I found with even in myself really being bought into that is there was no program that taught you the emotional stability, the behavioral stability, the accountability, the foundational components of that. So actually understanding how your emotions, your behaviors, and your mentality really play a massive role in you moving forward in any area of your life. So teaching you to stabilize in that, because if you are someone who struggles with having a better relationship with your money, or struggles with a better experience with your health, really staying consistent and disciplined in that area, struggling to believe that you are worthy, or that you can forgive, or that you can be forgiven, struggling to accept yourself, love yourself, feel better about yourself. If you struggle with patience, if you struggle with communication, right? All of these things are factors that have an underlying wound that requires the emotional, behavioral, and mental aspects. And once you can understand the connection of all of that, and not only just understand it, but build the self-awareness as you're learning too, you start to see, physically see the radical transformations that start to come out of finally being able to go to that person and communicate what's coming up for you, or to look in the mirror and not avoid yourself, or to dress up a little bit more that day. Maybe you're used to sitting on the couch or wearing your baggy clothes, and that's good enough. My mom's, I know you know what I'm talking about. But if we're just having a better relationship with your money and knowing what to do with it, and how to improve your circumstances, all of these things, right? You start to see a beautiful transformation take place in it actually going better. And where you start to improve one area of your life, you will naturally start to have that energy experience overflow into the other areas, which evolves you mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally, but equally intuitively, because now all these things that were once carrying so much weight in your mind, in your body, in your energy field, have now started to dissipate. So there's so much more space. And because you learned emotional, mental, and behavioral stabilization, when that sense of chaos or overwhelm or fight and flight comes up where it's like, I'm so used to having to do this all the time, or freaking out and doing this all the time, or these are my coping mechanisms. You don't have to do that anymore, because now you just have the tools to work through what's coming up for you and shifting your energy, shifting your experience, shifting your outlook, and your intuition can come through to guide you to your next step. So that's Intuition Immersion. It is literally a full life immersive program, and it is designed to be done in 8 weeks. However, it is truly a go at your own pace. And not only is it something you can go at your own pace with, but it is a resource. That's what I mean by this is like a one-stop shop for personal spiritual development. If you're getting started, or you've seen some, you've been in this for a while and you're not really seeing the results that you want. Right now I'm currently finishing up week 2, and it just freaking makes me so excited, because it's talking all about this ethical and responsible approach that you get to make and understand with emotional intelligence and comprehension of it, and how that plays a role and how your energy moves. This literally will help you to understand all of it. So that is Intuition Immersion. That is available now for enrollment, and you can go check it out in the show notes. And hopefully I get to see you inside. We officially open the day that this episode releases. So currently the women in the program are working on the pre-work, which is also super fun and highly recommend that you start with. But week 1 will officially open to drop, and I'm so excited to not only get everything into this program, but also to do this program right alongside with you guys. So there's 2 live Q&As, and if you choose the VIP option, then there is a more intimate container for personalized coaching with the group of VIPs. But either way, it's like the clarity, it's just the clarity. That's what makes me feel so finally at ease in my life. And let's dig into the episode and what this is all about, because this is such a huge component of it. So all these downloads that I've been receiving about simplicity and clarity, I have been asking for these steps for a very long time, since honestly probably like December or January. What's the bigger picture here? What does this next level look like? What am I supposed to be doing? Okay, I started all of this wanting to retire my husband and help people know about their intuition. And that looked like showing up on Facebook Lives, telling people about intuition, and doing readings. And I realized that in just doing readings, I wasn't going to be able to produce what I needed to essentially retire my husband. So I realized in analyzing my reading sessions that ultimately what people were missing and seeking was the ability and the desire to connect and understand themselves. And so I started building programs and learning how to do that, and offering coaching and learning how to do that. And I got to that point where I retired my husband, and I retired him right before COVID started. So it's been like 2 years of just building off of that, basically doing the same thing on repeat and trying different avenues of what I thought, or taking just like what you guys have shared with me in the DMs, in programs of where you're at, and morphing and building something. And I started to feel probably like middle of last year, like there's something else, like there's something I'm missing. There's something that I'm not getting. I've lost a sense of vision. So my vision was to retire my husband, and I did that. And then once I did that, I didn't necessarily have another vision, right? We often tend to think that just because we have a goal and we set it, the day we achieve it, that there's going to be something next. But that's not always the case. And it actually required me to do a lot of personal healing on a whole new level over 2020 to really mid 2021. And then from mid 2021 to today, I have been just kind of what feels like floating. Everything's working. People are getting great results. I'm enrolling clients. We have this beautiful life. We moved into this new home. I got a new loan for the first time in many years after we had our repo in 2016. My husband was basically dying. So there's like so many big achievements that have still taken place. But the vision and the direction of how this all comes together, what I'm supposed to do next, or what am I actually like building towards, didn't really come right away. And it actually took almost a full year. And in fact, it wasn't until the last 48 hours, which at the beginning when I started this saying, how did I know that this was literally what was going to need to be talked about today, planned 4 weeks ago, it wasn't until these last 48 hours where the entirety of the rest of that vision finally came through. So something that I knew was I did want to inevitably have a clothing line. I love cozy, comfy clothing. I love knickknacks. I love local artists. I love mugs. I love merchandising. I love journals. I love books. I love crystals. Like I love these things. And I do want to have a store. I love the idea of a brick and mortar. I love the idea of hiring people and providing jobs and benefits. And also one of my goals now is I want to retire my mom. I want to be able to bring my mom into this store that I've conceptualized that I want. And she has been in retail and merchandising, and she ran her own business for, she's been doing this for like 25, almost 30 years. So this is literally her forte. Whereas like I can build businesses online and run them and sustain them and grow them. But when it comes to like all things brick and mortar, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so inevitably I knew that I wanted to work that into my business, and my income stream eventually. I just didn't know what that really looked like. Like, do I just open a store? And anyways, so I digress. So my intuition has been guiding me to do some more personal development and to do some more self-reflection and to do some more healing over the last year. And as I started to approach, I think it was like my second trimester, I started to get all these nudges, intuitive nudges, that was like, you really need to simplify your business. You really need to get to create so much more flow and effortlessness and ease in the things that you're doing, and that you get to enjoy it more. Like I really pride myself on hard work and consistency. I have showed up, I shit you not, every single day for the last 4.5 years. And for anyone who's a spiritual entrepreneur listening to this or wants to be, it is about your consistency, hands down. If you want to be known and build a successful business, you have to be more willing to be uncomfortable and show up on camera or put your work together or discipline yourself with your schedule to make things happen. You have to do that. Otherwise, you're just always going to perpetuate, this isn't working. And I learned that very early on. And I've always been someone who works very hard for what I have or what I want. And so for the last 4.5 years, it's literally what I've done. And as I started to get these visions of like these other directions that I could take, when I got into my second trimester this time around, it was like simplification. And I'm like, oh my goodness, really? Like I can't just like punch through this and like have a really awesome launch for something and just drop a bunch of money in my account and we're good. We're going to help a lot of people and like that's going to sail me off into the new year. No. No. And logically and energetically, I knew that wasn't possible. Like I was at that point, like that thought was more so a cop-out than anything, because I don't necessarily want to just do nothing. Like I am not someone who does well when I just sit and do nothing. I really dislike TV unless there's like a series that me and my husband catch on and we just want to binge watch it. You know, we'll set some time aside throughout the week, but I don't like TV. I don't like just not doing anything. I like progression. And I've kind of always been that way. And I've really developed that over the last 4.5 years as I have watched myself progress and things constantly get better and better and better along the way. That doesn't mean there are things that have been uncomfortable or didn't go the way that I thought it would and so on and so forth. But my intuition has always guided me towards my next step. And so the more and more that I lean into this, I start to get these nudges, and I'm sitting there looking at the time and the calendar, and I'm like, I don't really have a lot of time to execute on a lot of this stuff before baby comes. Like, what is that actually genuinely going to look like? And how the heck am I going to get this into place in time to have a baby, to have some time off, not have to be constantly showing up, being like super present as I always am, like maybe even getting to have a couple weeks of literally just like no social media. And, you know, what does that look like? How do I do that? And oh my gosh, I only have so many weeks. And so the panic set in and the fear set in, but my intuition was telling me cohesiveness, simplicity, cohesiveness, simplicity. And so some of those parts came together very quickly. It was like, okay, membership, we got to do something different with this. Podcast, we need to create more cohesiveness with the direction that you want to go. Who do you actually want to serve? Okay, you want to help women feel more empowered and connected to their lives and better improve and advance all areas, like all of their circumstances. There's literally no excuse for us to struggle. And that doesn't mean, again, that difficult things don't come up and that it may cause struggle, but it's like this long-term perpetuating struggle that we just can't seem to get out of. Like that, like let's heal that. Let's get over that. Let's understand that that does not have to be the case. And that there's actually a mental and emotional component to it, equally a behavioral and a faith component to it, that these 4 pillars are everything, every time, every single motherfucking time. Sorry if you have children in the car, but like every time. Like I'm going to invite you, you're going to say this with me. Every single time. Your turn. One more time. Every single time. Every single time. Every single time. Okay, that was the last time. Whatever you're struggling with, it is an emotional, a behavioral, a mental, and a faith component to why you are struggling. Okay. So even in the depths of grief, this isn't necessarily like, I'm going to heal grief and I'm never going to be sad again. I'm going to give myself a week. Tried that. Doesn't work. But you can still improve or stabilize the other 2 areas of your life to help you stabilize the emotional component if you can't not cry or feel sad or feel depressed or feel overwhelmed or feel mad, right? Or if it's a behavioral thing where you relied on someone so heavily and now they're not there, so you have to change up your behaviors and your discipline, you can work within the other 3 areas to help you to improve the discipline that you struggle to see yourself improve or to believe that you can improve. So like these are the 4 frameworks that we work on within Intuition Immersion, because it is so important to understanding, especially if you're going to move forward with the intuitive nudges that you are in fact getting. So as I'm getting these nudges, as I'm getting these messages, as I'm stressing out over the time, that was my own mentality kicking in, my survivalistic tendencies, and it was creating a lot of anxiety. The next thing that I received was, you need to take some time off. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, God, let's pause for a moment, pause button. Okay. You want me to basically revamp my business. You want me to do this at this point, I have 8 more weeks. At that point, I think I had like 12 or 13. You want me to focus in on this, and you want me to bring in this and to stop that. And I'm going to take some time off, like genuinely take time off. What do you mean? What in God's name do you mean? And I really struggled with this. If anyone's telling you that intuition is this like rainbow fairyland that just like pops into your life and all of a sudden it's like, oh, bliss, it's so easy, let me just do that. No, they're fucking lying. They are. It's true, because when you really get the intuitive nudges to go in a certain direction or to improve something in your life, you have to go through. It's like a qualifying factor. You have to go through the discomfort of the changes that are needed to be made in order for that level of you, ultimately who you are underneath the limiting behaviors and beliefs and experiences that you're clutching onto. You have to go through the discomfort of creating the space and doing the work so that you can actually come through. A new level of you can come through. And I was so hesitant about this. But then on Wednesday, we had some appointments and things that we needed to deal with. And so I opened up my schedule on Wednesday and I was like, okay, this is going to be the day. You told me I needed to take time off. It's going to be this day, right? It's like, I always get this vision where it's like, God put his hand and he's pointing us in a direction and he's like, okay, you're essentially like, he's taking his little beacon on the board and he's moving you forward. And then you're putting your hand on top of that beacon and you're like trying to move it to the left or to the right or to the side or to this way, when he's like, nah, bro, like you're going this way. And then here's us with all of our control senses that's like, no, like let's try that. And we have free will, so we will move that beacon on the board. But the truth is that God already knew the direction you were supposed to go. So even if you try and sway from that, it's actually only going to perpetuate more resistance and complications for you the more you try and ignore it. So my intuition tells me to take this day off. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I'm doing it one day. And I even had things scheduled like later in that evening. So I was like, I'm going to take the day off, not the night, the day. And then what we ended up doing was doing a bunch of stuff, going to my parents for dinner, taking our time, and then getting home really late. And so I had to move everything in the evening too. And I'm like, okay, there's the day. I gave you a day. And then we woke up the next day and my husband needed to go to go do some stuff for my dad for his truck. And he's like, well, do you want to come with me? Like, I also have this barbecue and, we could do these things. And I'm like, oh, but okay, that will work. But I have some things at like 3. So I'm going to have to like figure that out. It's like, okay, yeah. Well, can you figure it out? Can you take time off? And so like I stressingly said yes. And so we all went, we packed up, we packed all the things that we needed for the day to make it as fun and easy as possible and time effective. And I'm going to be so strategic. And then wherever we were at the time, the day ended up taking longer. And so I ended up just having to move stuff again and cancel certain things. And we ended up taking the day. We went to Westhampton Mall, which I haven't been in a mall in a very long time. And I really wanted to go into Saint Laurent. And I've been working so like diligently on my mindset and my emotions and really tuning into a bigger vision. And at this point, I still don't have anything put together as to exactly what this break is for, exactly this direction, why this cohesiveness and simplicity, and where this retail store fits in and all this stuff. No idea. I just have all these pieces. And I wanted to go in this store. I've been working on my mindset. I've been really like plugging into higher caliber of conversations and groups and networking. And I was like, I'm going to walk into the store and I'm going to pick up the freaking bag that I want. And I'm going to just walk around the store and enjoy it and be that crazy ass person that these like high caliber salespeople, I'm assuming, like don't like. And I'm just going to own it. And I'm going to go touch the shoes and I'm going to go pick up the blazer and pretend to and hold it up to myself, even though I'm 31 weeks pregnant and clearly it is not going to fit me. And all their stuff is like a double zero. And not that I'm laughing at anyone who's a double zero, but like if you see me, I am clearly not anywhere near double zero right now. And so I'm walking around the store and there's this guy, he's super nice. So my assumptions were immediately wrong. It's so welcoming, like was pointing out other purses like, hey, maybe you'd like this. And I understand sales, so I know how this works. And I just keep getting drawn back to this other one. And in this store specifically, they don't have price tags on their clothes and their stuff. So you just genuinely know that it's costing you quite a few hundred, if not thousands of dollars, which is fine, totally expected. But I just wanted to own it. And so this guy's super nice, showing me all this stuff, and I just keep gravitating back to this purse. And if you watch me on Instagram, I posted it, and I love it, and I'm obsessed with it, and it's like a cloud, and I'm going to have it in my life, but probably in black, because if you're a mom, you just know, don't get anything in white or beige. So I'm enjoying this purse, I'm enjoying this experience, I'm enjoying this day, and I'm really just getting out of my head for the first time in a long time. You know, when we really get disciplined in things, it can also breed toxic behaviors and habits, because then we figure that that's the only way we're going to get there. But this message to take a break was really guiding me to like actually just enjoy what I've created. I had a bunch of payments come through that were reoccurring revenues. I had new students sign up for the membership or for the Intuition Immersion. I had Goss Magazine reach out to me, which is a pretty big published magazine with physical copies. It's not just a digital online magazine, to be a part of the next issue with Sahara Rose. And this was literally all in these 48 hours of me surrendering, creating space, and taking time off. And we just genuinely enjoyed the day. We walked around the mall with the kids. We got to show them the pirate ship, the sea lions at the mall. We got to go into toy stores and just like look at stuff. I got to hold my beautiful bag that's going to come home with me one day very soon, and just like actually live life. And I realized in this moment when we're leaving the mall how much I actually needed that, how much I actually just needed to live my life. And that's why Intuition Immersion is such an important program, because you will get to points in your life where what you have done is now just becoming forceful. Because it's worked for so long, it is now the thing that you're clutching onto. And at this point, that's exactly where I was at, is I was clutching onto this specific schedule with these specific tasks, with the specific work, with the specific mindset. And even though I was evolving my mental state and the people I'm connecting with and the groups that I'm getting into and the masterminds that I'm joining, like even though I was doing these things, I wasn't bringing it or carrying it over into the other areas of my life. So when I say that self-awareness is so fundamentally important, when I realized that I was being so resistive to this guidance and these nudges, and it was uncomfortable, that this is what I meant. And this is what I mean. And within Intuition Immersion, I bring you back to that space of, okay, you're probably going to avoid the nudges for some time, because you have to get to the point where you're so sick and tired of even hearing your own excuses that you finally just take a step back and look around and realize that the staircase you've been wanting to climb up has been there the whole time. But because you're so hyper-focused and hyper-vigilant into this one area and just getting out of it, which is equally now at that point breeding a sense of desperation, that you can't see the staircase, even though it's literally a foot away from you. And so this 48 hours ended up opening up this opportunity for me to see the staircase. And I realized, okay, I've been making all these changes in my life. I've been so much more disciplined in this area. I have been much more mindful and conscious in this aspect. I have been growing and evolving my network. So there's all these things that I can finally see that I have in fact been doing. And so this nudge to take a break opened up that opportunity for me to finally just stop and to just surrender and to finally lean on my faith. And even though I pray every day and I tune into the gospel and find a passage that really resonates with me, that's guidance that I needed to hear, like it's sidebar. It's so fascinating to me reading the Bible now as my sense of guidance, and then how spiritual entrepreneurs get real triggered by, the Bible. It's like, you literally draw cards for the same purpose. The only difference is cards are rooted in occultic rituals, which is demons and entities, and the Bible is rooted in God. So it's like, you know what I mean? And there may be some of you that listen to that and we're like, is that judgment? It's not judgment. It's just, it's interesting to me now because I used to do it. I literally used to do the same thing and I did not know better. And if you actually look into the origins of tarot cards and oracle cards, it's literally, it stems from occultic rituals and demons and entities, and all those types of things. So it's like, that's why when I went on this huge tangent more recently about how it's such a disservice if you're not leading people to God, it's because literally the things that you're doing that you think that you're doing are right are the opposite. And I can say that because I went through the shame and the overwhelm and the anxiety of having to realize that I misled a lot of people. And I feel really bad about that. But it's in that continuous desire to learn and continuous desire to trust in the nudges and follow the intuition that it led me to God. It led me to knowing better. And by no means am I perfect. And I know there are some episodes on here where they sound super judgy, and they honestly probably were. But that wasn't necessarily the case or the intention. And the more that I continue to check myself based on proper guidance, it helps me to better evolve and stabilize, and again, even lean more into my self-awareness and my intuition when I get the message to take a break, simplify, trust in me. You may think you have 8 weeks, but time is subjective anyways. It is not a constant. You know this, right? So I'm like, okay, woosah. So back to my story. We're almost done. So we have this day. I get to like fully immerse myself into my life and enjoy my kids and be so much more present. And it was a really beautiful experience. We ended up at this freedom rally, which was a huge barbecue for one of my husband worked with this guy that they just kind of stayed in touch over the years. And so it was him and his parents who were hosting this rally. And there was, pathologists and heart surgeons, world-renowned pathologists and heart surgeons that were there, and just sharing about like the ridiculousness of the world, the poisons, the toxicity, mentally, emotionally, the damage that these shots are causing in people. And it just like, I forgot how important it is to really be reminded of that. I really do try and keep a lot of that stuff off of my page and off of my podcast, just because it's something that is just so irrelevant to me. I've gone down so many rabbit holes of understanding it as far as I feel like I need to, but it was such a good reminder because it really gave so much more context to how important the work is that I do in terms of teaching people that self-empowerment, that discernment, the self-awareness, because if you want to be able to see beyond the manipulation of the world, you have to better understand yourself. You have to understand how you process energy. You have to understand how you process your emotions. You have to be aware of your behaviors, because otherwise you just get sucked into the trap of the garbage the government tells you that you have to do. And I remember when my doctor handed me the pamphlet to get the COVID-19 shot, and the whole thing is like, it's safe for pregnancy. And then this pathologist goes down to say that not only is it a lie for them to say that it's safe, because they've literally never tested it, so that information is wrong in its entirety, but also this is how this shot actually affects the uterine lining of women. And not only does it affect them now, but if they're carrying a fetal female, that it can also cause sterilization because of the particles within the shot and how it can penetrate through the uterus barriers and all these things. And he's breaking it down. And I'm like, man, like that's important. Like that's something that we can't just ignore or avoid. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, like, yeah, right. I'm going to tell you right now, you got another thing coming, because one, you're clearly not opening up your mind, and two, you have not actually listened to the facts or the people who know what's going on, and you're just trusting pamphlets that say, yeah, this is good for you, when there's literally no research done, and for a reason, and it's lawyered. So these companies are protected by saying this because they have no data to prove or disprove it. But you need the data. And as data has come out, it actually disproves a lot of these things. So anyways, we're going to get off that topic. But so we're just listening, we're connecting. We met some incredible people there, and we're just jamming out. We met this one guy, and it was like me and Phil and his friend and this guy, and we're jamming out on frequencies and quantum theory and connecting with energy and homesteading and just all these things that me and Phil just really love to do and want to be a part of our lives, and the importance of quantum energy. And, you know, it was so phenomenal to just have these conversations and listen in person and just being present and playing with our kids in the park and watching them on the trampoline with other kids, and, you know, just being around like-minded people. And I really realized how much the resistance that I was facing was truly just my own. And I'm going to share a passage with you from Mark 4 that I read about with our neighbors. We do a Bible study with them. And it honestly just like stuck with me. And it has been a huge learning curve for me and lesson, and surrender experience since we heard about it. I think it would have been like maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. But it's Mark 4, verse 35 to 41. And it says, "On the same day when evening had come, he said to them, 'Let us cross over to the other side.' Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in a boat as he was. And other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat onto the boat, so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow, and they awoke him and said to him, 'Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?' Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, 'Why are you so fearful? Why is it that you have no faith?' And they feared exceedingly and said to one another, 'Who can this be that even the wind and the sea obey him?'" And when I heard this passage, it was like an aha moment. Not only has there been so many things in our lives that led us up to building this relationship with these wonderful people, them moving beside us having this Bible study night, really finding our faith, coming into the connection with the Bible, learning to find our guidance within the Word of God. But then this passage to show up and it to be just so relevant for so many things. Like, I have clutched onto this one because in these moments where I'm like, what do you mean take time off? What do you mean I got to do this? What do you mean I have 8 weeks? Panic. I keep coming back to this passage. And this passage is essentially, no matter what storm you're in right now, no matter what you are truly challenged by, Jesus is the promissory of peace and calm. That in a storm, you can only control what you can control. And if you're in a situation where you're the one on that boat and it's the wind and the waves that are knocking you all which ways, the only thing you have left is faith. And Jesus is the promise that in that faith that he will bring that peace, that he will bring that calm to that storm. And what's so much more profound about this is, could you just for a moment imagine you're in this tiny boat with probably nothing more than a lantern. In this case, they don't have any food. They haven't taken any food with them. They're crossing the sea. There's a raging storm. They're getting thrown this way and that. Jesus is sleeping. Like, there's this dude on the boat literally sleeping. And there's these other men who are panicking. And they all are faced with this potential that they're going to die. And this man sleeping told them, "Hey, get in this boat. Let's go to the other side." And they're like, what are you doing? What do you mean in the middle of this storm? And for him to wake up calmly, command the weather, and this is before they had weather simulations, by the way. Jesus was the weather simulation. He was the heart program. I think I need to do another conspiracy episode. You send me a message on Instagram. You let me know if we should do another conspiracy episode. Because at this point, it's not even a conspiracy. It's just actually fact. But anyways, it just cracks me up. This dude stands up on this boat and goes like, "Wind, nah, man. Waves, simmer down." And then there's these men in absolute turmoil and panic. And they're looking around and they're like, "What just happened? What do you mean you just stopped this?" And for him to stand up and just say, "Hey guys, just have a little faith." Like, can you understand the power of that moment? And even more so, apply it to your life. Whatever storm is happening in your life, to have someone just calmly walk up to you and say, "Hey, you know what? Shh. Just have a little faith. Why do you have no faith?" And in that moment, to just have this calm and this peace and the storm dissipates, whatever you were trying to control, whatever anxiety was arising within you, whatever emotional challenge you were facing, whatever physical experience you're in, it just all of a sudden doesn't matter. It's not the forefront of your focus. And it's like you can just close your eyes and place your hand on your heart and just feel so at ease. Like that's what Jesus is sharing in this passage. And ultimately that's God's promise to us through Jesus, is this beautiful faith, this beautiful peace and calming. And so after these conversations and jamming on quantum energy and surrounding ourselves with 48 hours of just like so much like genuine life time, on the way home, I finally have this thing hit me, that all these pieces, the store, the Intuition Immersion, the direction the podcast is going, and these other things that I equally have started, so like the sip and social events with these other two beautiful women, like where all of these things, finally the string connected. Because in those moments, I remember getting to this barbecue, and because I had spent another day having to rearrange things, I had one person that I was going to be doing a connection call with. And she actually, so I emailed her to reschedule, and I emailed her like 4 or 5 hours before we were supposed to do our call. And she ended up like just choosing to cancel. She's like, no, this is just won't work for me, and just canceled. And so I felt really bad. I was like, man, like I feel bad. I got this person on my calendar. Who knows what this connection could have been? You know, my mind runs into all the what ifs, and all of a sudden like, oh, what is she going to think of me? That now she's just canceling her appointment. And I almost started to take it personally. And this happened like right before we pulled up to this barbecue. So I'm feeling the sense of panic. I'm feeling the sense of anxiety. I'm really like retreating into myself, just playing with the kids, not really mingling or talking to anybody. And I remember in that moment that I just became very self-aware that this is literally behavior that I'm executing, and this is the emotions and the mental capacity that I'm holding. And I just sat there and I just prayed and I said, God, please allow the peace to wash over me. And I thought of this passage, and I thought of how whatever fear, whatever anxiety, whatever mental disbelief that I am clutching onto right now, I ask that you take it away from me so that I can be as present and connected and experience all the greatness that you have brought for us to be here and experience today. And I remember going up and getting up and just going and finding Phil. And we got the kids set up with other kids and things to do. And that was it. All of a sudden there was peace. I was present. I was laughing with people. I was talking with people. I met this wonderful woman named Shelly, who's a therapist, and we just jammed out on the support that people need nowadays, and her also coming into her faith with Jesus and how it has transformed her life. And then I shared about my story, and you know, it just ended up being such a beautiful evening. And I remember on the way home how everything had shifted after that prayer, how I had become aware, I had thought of this passage, and I prayed, and everything had shifted. And I realized as I'm sitting there, and Phil's like, okay, like talk me through your program. Like what's up with it? Like what's the deal? He just wants to know about it. So I'm talking to him about it. And he's like, okay, this is amazing. Awesome. Like that's going to change a lot of people's lives. And I'm like, I know, it's freaking incredible. And he's like, okay, so what else do you have going on? Cause I'd shared with him how I'd felt this anxiety. And so he's like, well, let's talk it through. Let's make sure there's nothing left there. And by the way, this is not how our relationship used to go. I was not someone who before used to be able to do these things like I do now. So again, an evolution in everything. And we're jamming out on it. And all of a sudden it was like this flash of aha moment where all these different pieces finally strung together. And I could finally see the bigger plan of where I was going, of what I needed to execute on, of what I could deal with or control right now, what I had, my responsibilities. And if I wouldn't have taken this 48 hours and been immersed in these experiences of literally living life, I would have continued to perpetuate the same toxic discipline that I was building into by not listening to the intuitive nudges. So what I really want you to take away from this is that your intuitive next step that's coming through for you is more likely going to be something uncomfortable. Because in order for a new level of you to truly come through, you have to be willing to let go of what you're clutching onto that's equally not serving you, so that you can make the space for the clarity, for the vision, for the understanding, for the connections, and allow the space for God to just do his work. And I woke up with a whole new sense of purpose. I woke up with a whole new sense of peace in my heart, with surrender in my mind, with knowing that God really, truly has my back. And that's not always going to be the case every time. But it's passages like this that I can come back to and reference. It's prayers that I can ask for that surrender when I'm in my head too much. It's trusting the intuition, even if it's uncomfortable, to just do the thing that I'm being called to execute on, and to have the space for it to all work out. And in this case, it was 48 hours for me. Sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's maybe even a month, sometimes it's even longer. One of my previous clients, who is such an incredible friend now, she ended up having this intuitive nudge to take what was supposed to be just a couple months off and go on this retreat and do some traveling and move out of her apartment and just like find herself. And it ended up being 6 months. And it was a big struggle for her to just continuously trust in that intuition. And finally, she made some great connections. She went through a lot of healing. She discovered new layers and depths of herself. And since she has chosen to step back into her work, she is getting opportunities left, right, and center to work with world-renowned speakers and healers and thought leaders. And it is unlike anything she's experienced before. Magazines and producing opportunities and all this stuff. And it truly is because of taking the uncomfortable nudges that was telling her to create some space and actually just executing on it and trusting in God that he's going to show up for her. And that's what your intuition is doing. It's nudging you to a greater, grander experience. But there's this misconception that it's going to be comfortable or easy. It was not freaking easy for me to open up my schedule and to, it was easy physically, not emotionally or mentally, to just open up my schedule and take 2 days off in the middle of the week when I typically have clients and connection calls and podcast recording stuff and all this other stuff. And I'm in the middle of these rebrands and these relaunches and all these things are going on. It's not easy to just take time off. But what it was wildly worth it. Wildly worth it. To the point where I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen next time. I say that now, but that doesn't mean it's not going to cause hesitation next time. This is a bit of a longer episode, but I really wanted to leave this one with you because wherever you're at right now, whatever you're struggling with, your intuition is trying to come through to show you a whole new level of experience that you can have. But because of the discomfort that you face and maybe even the lack of stability or neutralization that you know how to do, you're struggling to trust in that intuitive nudge to do the thing. Because I know how to stabilize my emotions and my mentality, I could act on my intuition more effortlessly in terms of just opening up my schedules and making that decision in the split of a second, and then just working through the tools that I had as things came up for me. And it opened up everything that I needed to now I have this super clear 5-year plan, maybe longer, maybe less. And I know what my next steps are undeniably. And the last component of it is faith. That God truly gave me this vision and this message and these clarities and these steps because he's got something even bigger than what I can conceptualize this plan to be in store. And that he's going to fill in and do the work just alongside me. right? It gets to be 2 parts. I'm not doing this alone. And the ease, the ease, the peace, it just feels so good. And this is what I want you to have to, like, I want to bottle this up and just like put it on a shelf and say, take me, drink me. It's not poison, I promise. It's not tequila with a worm. Gross. This is the feeling that I want you to have and to know. Because when you have these tools in your mind, and I'm not some guru, like I was someone who was lost in the world, thought that I was going to serve my way through life, maybe be a realtor, and like that's it. And somehow I was going to build wealth enough, coverage, cool, and raise a family in a house with a mortgage. Like that is not how my life went at all, not even remotely close. Once upon a time, I really genuinely believed that. And I started there. And it was because of education. It was because of investing in myself, both monetarily and most importantly, time, that I have been able to develop these skill sets to turn around and not only teach them, but equally to utilize them when I'm getting these nudges and these pulls to go into certain directions that I had no idea what they were going to look like. Even though I have this vision, I have no idea what it's going to look like. Like I know what the end of it looks like, but I have no idea what the steps look like. So I can get this clear download in this vision, but equally where I get to take my faith into an even bigger level, into an even deeper level, is in the surrender that the steps are just going to come as I continue to execute on them, open, willingly, disciplined, and just continue to be connected to this work. And that's what I want for you. And that's equally why I say that Intuition Immersion is a one-stop shop for your personal and spiritual development. And done the right way, with emotional and mental and behavioral stability, with spiritual discipline, with building a relationship by yourself. Like a lot of people get turned off with the idea of working with God or being in union with God or being a Christian because they hate the aspect of church and they don't like the aspect of judgment. But do you like working with demons? Do you like working with entities? Do you like working with a universe that's really just co-creating based off of the signature and frequency you're putting off? Like that's so lonely and that's so disempowering. And I say that genuinely, and I don't mean to offend anyone by any means, but it's like, your relationship is you in this book. You don't even have to go to the church. The point of church is community, right? And not all churches are great, just like not all people are great. So find people that align with you and build stronger values and keep doing what you're doing. Like even if God isn't your way right now, just keep going forward. And with Intuition Immersion, what I love about it so much is that it gives you all these aspects, and you're going to tune into certain ones now and build on other ones later. But ultimately, it's guiding you to this full life immersive experience where better isn't just a dream. It is the life you are immersed in and you live. And that is why this program is, I'm going to swear, the motherfucking holy grail, and everybody needs to own it. Like everybody needs to be a part of it because it is literally the solution to life. It is the solution to life in all facets, all of it, every single one. Remember, we're going to do this again. Every single time. Every single time. Every single time. So I'm going to leave this here. I would love to hear your takeaways. Screenshot, send me a DM, let me know. Let me know if you want to do a conspiracy episode. There's been so many more that I've uncovered that aren't even a conspiracy anymore. From weather simulations to economic simulations to Canada's ridiculousness to Alberta, our province. So just fun fact, good news. The people of Alberta are getting together and are actually trying to create a separatism. So if you're not super familiar with the history of Canada, it was in the late 1980s, early 1990s, where Quebec actually became their own sovereign nation within a country. that date might be wrong. But it was at least 20, 30 years ago. Anyways, so Alberta is now attempting to do that because Alberta actually funds over 80% of the money for the entire country federally. And we have zero representation legislatively or federally. And the East basically rules over all the decisions. So we have 9 justices to our Supreme Court. 3 of them are from Manitoba, 3 of them are from Quebec, 2 of them are from out west, and 1 of them is in the Maritimes. And the system is literally designed to favor the East Coast, ultimately Ontario, and what the party there decides, while the West Coast funds every single project and never gets a penny back. So we've given in 2018, it was charted that we gave over $720 billion to the government since the separatism of Quebec. And we still have 4 more years of how that has been tacked on. So there'll be more money that we've given over. And it's interesting to learn more about our history of our country, something you're not taught about in school. Go figure. So there's people trying to create a referendum and actually separate, which is really phenomenal because then it will actually make our province more wealthy and the distribution so much more efficient and effective in terms of not sinking the people in Alberta who are providing the money for the rest of the country and a lot of the resources as well. So that was something that we learned yesterday. A little fun fact for you. There's just lots of good things coming down the pipe, lots of changes. And let me know. All right, I'm going to leave this here. And I hope you enjoyed this. And I really look forward to connecting with you again next week. I'm excited to see how mind blown I am again and where it goes. And if you made it this far, I just want to thank you for tuning in. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there was some golden nuggets for you to take away from this. And if anything, trust your intuition even when it's uncomfortable, and at the very least, lean on your faith. All right, I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't forget to find the magic in today. Before you go, I would love and appreciate so much if you could take a moment of your time to leave a 5-star review. It helps me to be able to get this message out to so many more in the world, and I am so truly thankful that you choose this place to be every single week. Until next time, don't forget to find the magic in today.